by the time you left?
Well, a big part of it was the fact that we were unlike the other shows on ESPN, I thought, at the time. In fact, if you go back to our launch in 2003, and this is the thing I'm most proud of with the show, when we launched our show, we were the only live national sports program in the country. There was no other sports show on live television in the morning.
Wow.
And if you, all you have to do now is grab your clicker and start flopping through the channels, and you'll see that Mike and Mike has come on TV since we launched. Sports Center is now live in the mornings, beginning at 9 o'clock. They were always on tape before. NFL Network has a live morning show. Major League Baseball Network has a live morning show. So I think that the one thing that we proved was, I think a lot of the naysayers felt that there wasn't an audience for a live sports show in the morning. We proved that there is an audience, and it's sometimes insatiable for 24/7 sports coverage, and we really did, with that little show, we changed the face of morning sports TV, and that's the thing that I'm most proud of that we accomplished with that show, because now the networks can't get by anymore with putting taped programs on in the morning. Viewers too smart. The news cycle now is far, far shorter than it was. If it was 24 hours, the news cycle when we started, I would say the news cycle now is 4 to 6 hours. With the internet and the way we consume sports news in general, the news cycle now is so much shorter than it used to be. Breaking news can be pushed off the table much faster, depending on what's breaking behind it. So I think that's the thing I'm most proud of, is the fact that we didn't have great success at first, but after they made the anchor change, Kit and Thea left, and they brought Dana on, and Woody and Skip joined the program, and I really believe that, and I still hear this to this day, viewers felt like it was a family. Dana, me, Skip, and Woody, and it was that regularity of seeing the same people every day over and over. The viewer starts to make a connection to the on-air team, and we were together. Skip, Dana, and myself were together for about 7 years, and it was over 7 years before Dana left. And over that 7 years, we built a real solid everyday following, and I do think that it was just people kind of viewed us as regular, everyday people, and we were kind of their morning sports family. And it was a great fit, and I enjoyed every minute of it.
You mentioned working with Skip Bayless. Everyone has an opinion on him. I was just wondering for you, what is Skip like when the cameras are off? What has Skip meant to you?
Skip is completely different off the air than on. And by that I only mean demeanor. Everything that he says when he's on TV, he vehemently believes. He is not manufacturing a single opinion for the sake of television. And I tell people that, and I get looked at like I've got 3 heads. And I can honestly say, with everything that I'm worth, that those are his opinions. I mean, you can disagree with them all you want. He just has a different way of seeing sports. And that doesn't mean he's wrong. It doesn't mean he's right, but it doesn't mean he's wrong. And Skip always looks at something, and while 9 out of 10 fans may look at LeBron James and see the greatest ever, all he sees is he's not Michael Jordan. And that's all he sees. That's all he sees. And so in Skip's mind, it's his job to speak the truth as he sees it. And it's fun to disagree with him. It's fun to agree with him. And I can tell you honestly that a big part of the show's success was the Skip tune-in factor in the mornings. What is he going to say about the Super Blowout? What's his opinion going to be? So there's anywhere from 8 to 10 days a year in the sports calendar where things happen, and I still say to myself to this day, I wish I was doing First Take today because I want to know what he has to say about this.
That's great.
Because I know it's going to be different than what I have to say.
Right.
I can tell you that I worked with Skip for 8 years, and I probably only guessed correctly what he was going to say about major events 20% of the time. The other 80% of the time, he blew me away with something I never saw coming.
That's great.
But that's the beauty of Skip Bayless.
So now you're working at Sports Center. Could you take me through what a typical day is like for you from start to finish? for instance, maybe today's show? What was your process?
Sure. When we get in, we look at the rundown. We take a look at, the pacing of the show, where, what segments are going where, what guests we have, how much time we're spending on each segment. Typically, there's very little variance from the time we get in the morning to the time we begin the program. But on an average sports day, I would say 5 days a week, there's 3 days there's breaking news that completely interrupts our cycle. So we're on during a time where sports events are very fluid. Coaches tend to be fired and hired in the morning hours. Contracts tend to be finalized during our show. There's a lot of things that break and a lot of things that go on. So while we have a concrete rundown for the 2 hours, we know going into it that we have to be very flexible because something might break, and it usually does.
Right.
And that's when everybody's skill set is tested. How much do you know about a specific topic? If a sports athlete of great note passes away during our show, how versed are we in able to do 3, 4, 5 interviews with people that come on, and you have no prep time, no notes, no researcher out there with you, nobody to help you. You're on your own. How much can you, are you ready to go? And that's the test that we face on a regular basis. And, those days are exciting, not the passing away part. I never like doing obituaries, but the days of breaking news are exciting because it's a real test of your skill set to see how well versed you are on any random sports topic that may come up.
What do you think makes a good Sports Center episode from your perspective?
Well, for me, I'm more suited. I think my style and just my viewing habits are more suited to a really good discussion. I prefer discussion television over scripted highlights, which is partly why I'm where I am. I would not be a good fit on the 11 because the 11 is a highlight rip and read. It's one after another, and it's a highlight-laden show.
Right.
Our show, because of where it falls in the day, highlights are important. Today we did the NBA highlight, the All-Star Game highlight. Well, obviously you have to do that, but I'm more interested in the discussion after the highlight. I'm fine doing the highlight, but I want to know afterwards, all right, now we're 2/3 of the way through the season, what happens from here? And I like having panel discussions. Today we had a discussion on the retiring athlete, and we had George Karl and Tom Penn on to talk about when superstars are facing the inevitable question, am I done? And I like those kind of things, the issue-driven sports discussions that sometimes you'll just let breathe. Maybe that was scripted for 3 minutes or 5 minutes, but it's really good, so they're going to let it go 8 minutes because it's too good to end. That's the kind of stuff that I look for. We also had a segment today with Mark Schlereth, who obviously won 3 Super Bowls. He wrote a great piece on .com about the code and the culture of the NFL locker room and how most fans think they understand it, but in reality they don't. And it's not nearly as Neanderthal and as cutthroat as it's been portrayed in recent weeks. So I loved having a discussion with him about the real culture and code in an NFL locker room and how it doesn't have to be this machismo, Neanderthal, towel-snapping joke fest at everyone else's expense. And he talked about Joe Gibbs' philosophies of learning to put yourself to rest. In other words, putting team before self. And that's how championships are built. And that's the kind of stuff that I love. I love those kinds of discussions. I love doing segments that make people that are watching say, wow, I never thought of it that way.
Now, before I let you go, I got one last question. You're obviously a huge Cleveland sports fan. I want to hear your answer to this. Who do you think is closest to winning a championship first, the Cavs, Browns, or Indians?
Well, based on the fact that the Indians made the playoffs last year, although they lost in their one-game wild card series to the Rays, I have to say the Indians. Now, as much as I say that, I can also make a strong case that they're light years away from winning a World Series. So that's the plight of the Cleveland sports fan. The Browns are an utter disaster. They're a dumpster fire of mega proportions.
Your tweets are very funny about being a Browns fan.
Man, it breaks my heart because I love that team, and I have so many fond memories of the teams of the late '80s with Bernie Kosar and losing to the Broncos 3 times in the AFC Championship game and so close. But at the end of the day, the Browns, although they have a lot of individual talent, their management at this point looks like someone put a bag over their heads, spun them around 50 times, and pulled the bag off and told them to try to find their way out of a dark room.
Oh, man.
It's horrible. And the Cavs, they have their own issues. Until recently, their top draft choice, the #1 overall draft choice, and Anthony Bennett was playing like somebody that you might see at your city courts downtown.
Yeah, real bad.
He's just now starting to play a little bit better, but it doesn't look like they made the best choice there, and of course losing LeBron. So I'd have to go with the Indians, just because in baseball, it's even though it tends to be a spending competition, you can sneak in there, and if you can sneak in there and you can get into a 7-game series, anything can happen.
Yeah.
Any baseball team can beat any other baseball team on any given day. You can't say that about the NFL. And it's really tough to say that at times in the NBA. So I'll go with my Indians, and if they ever win it, you probably won't see me on television for a couple of weeks.
I got a lot of Cleveland sports fans. I hope you get something. You guys need some happiness.
We're a resilient but battered bunch.
You are. You definitely are. Jay, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. You were great. Everybody make sure to check Jay out on SportsCenter. Definitely follow him on Twitter. His handle's @JCrawford ESPN. Jay, thanks so much.
Tom, thank you. Well done.